it is 7 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting to order. Can I ask any members or officers in physical attendance with an electronic device, please mute that device to avoid feedback. Any remote participants, please keep your camera and microphone off unless you wish to speak, and ideally do not use your camera facility as this can affect the quality of the meeting. The meeting may be recorded, and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy, and the recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their SBC or KCC laptops to participate virtually. If you do join using the link on the website or on a mobile or tablet, it may not always be possible to identify you, and you may not be recorded as in a remote attendance. Please ask members to speak loudly and clearly into their microphones and to switch off their microphone after speaking. Otherwise, remote participants may be unable to hear the next speaker. Welcome everyone, members, officers and any members of the public to the Audit Committee meeting of the 24th of July 2023. The following staff are in attendance either in the chamber or remotely: Director of Resources Lisa Fillery, Head of Finance and Procurement Claire Stanbury, Head of Audit Partnership Catherine Woodward, Senior Auditor Mark Goodwin, Senior Auditor Catherine Byford, Audit Manager from Grant Thornton Richmond Niarco, and Democratic Services Officers Billy Attaway and Philippa Davis. Are there any other officers in attendance? No, thank you. Are all members aware of the evacuation procedure? No one needs any assistance with evacuating the building? Good. There isn't any fire alarm practice scheduled for this evening, so if the fire alarm does go off, take it as a proper emergency, and please use the emergency exits and convene in the far side of the car park, please. But there isn't anyone in attendance that needs assistance. Apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have apologies for absence from Councillor Palmer, who's substituted by Councillor Kavanagh, Councillor Wooster, but she's online, who's substituted by Councillor Vowles, and Councillor No, but she's attending remotely.
Lovely, thank you, Billy. Okay, so do members take the minutes held on the 17th of April 2023, minutes numbers 824 to 829, and the minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of May 2023, minutes 31 to 32 as a correct record? Are there any matters arising? Councillor Booth.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may, unfortunately, you've missed 3 declarations of interest.
I beg your pardon.
No,
Councillor.
no, that's fine. I want to give a declaration of interest if you should so request.
My apologies. I'm jumping too far ahead. Where are we? Yes. Are there any declarations of interest, Councillor Booth?
Yeah, strangely, Chairman, I have a declaration of interest. I'm currently the chairman of Swale Community Leisure, engaged with Serco and Swale Borough Council, delivering the leisure contract in Sittingbourne and Sheppey. Should any item of the agenda delve into that particular area, thank you. I will keep stum. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Booth. Any other declarations of interest? Thank you. All right, then we've moved back to the minutes then. Is it all agreed that those minutes are signed as a correct record? Thank you, members. All items are Part B reports for decisions by the Audit Committee. So we move on then to agenda item 5, which is the the audit progress report. So I would like to call on Richmond to give the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. On the call, I've got the engagement lead for the audit. Matt Dane is on the call. Today, we're presenting the audit progress report and the sector update. We assume that this is being read by members. Our key headlines will be on page 4 of our report, where we've stated that the 21-22 audit was completed in November 2022. We've started planning for 22-23 in March. There are bits that we aiming to get done when we start the year-end audit in August 2023. We have issued a detailed audit plan in April 2023, setting out our audit approach of the authority. We'll then want to move on to page 6 of our report, where we have detailed the audit deliverables from audit plan through to the audit findings report, the auditor's report, and the auditor's annual report. And then we move on to page 7 of our report, where we want to update members of the sector update.
Councillor Henderson.
I don't know whether I've gone blind, but the pages of the report do not appear to be numbered.
If you look in the very bottom right-hand corner, very small print, Councillor Henderson.
Oh, you mean cover by the staple?
No, right at the bottom of each page.
Okay, yeah. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Richmond. Please carry on.
Yeah, so back to page 7 of our report, where the intent is to give members update of the sector. At this point, myself and Matt, we're happy to take questions.
Are there any questions on so far? Councillor Booth.
Thank you, Chairman. Not so much a question. I think it's a very well laid out and detailed evaluation to date. Being very used to seeing the Grant Thornton methodology and their layout, it's pretty simple for everybody to grasp hold of. The only comment I would make through you, Mr. Chairman, is I actively look forward to October of this year, when we see some of those specific items, the audit findings report and the auditor's report coming through in, I hope, a lot of drill down detail. But apart from that, yeah, no problem at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Booth. Any further questions from members? Is there anything further from you on the report, Richmond?
No, Chair, all said already.
Lovely, that's great. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Sorry, we have to do that again. All those in favour, please show. Any against? Abstentions? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members.
Chairman, sorry.
Councillor Booth.
I didn't see indication from those that are remote. They can't vote even. Okay, different rules. Thank you.
Yeah, they can take part in the debate, Councillor Booth, but they can't vote. I'll get it right in a minute. Right, so we move on now to agenda item 6, the annual Treasury Management Report 22-23. So I believe that's you, Claire. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the annual report providing you with an update on the performance of our Treasury management function for the year. It's important that we have an effective Treasury management function to ensure that we manage our finances and cash flows in an effective way whilst ensuring risks are controlled as far as possible. During 2022-23, the authority held a steady borrowing amount of £10 million and invested excess cash for relevant time periods to manage cash flow appropriately. The average amount invested on any day was £30 million, with just under 10 million invested on the last day of the financial year. 2022-23 was an interesting year in terms of Treasury management. After 13 years of pretty static interest rates and low inflation, we saw much more activity this year, with inflation passing 11% and the bank-based interest rate now running as high as 5%. It was 4.25 at the end of the financial year. As we were investing more than borrowing during the year, this was beneficial to us at Swale, bringing in investment income far exceeding expectations. The borrowing we held had previously been secured at low rates, so during the year our borrowing was largely protected from those rate rises that were seen. However, new loans are now coming in at much higher rates, as evidenced by the loan renewed in February 23, as shown in point 2.6 of the report. We've seen cash balances fall over the year, and this is down to the repayment of COVID grant balances to central government, where the initial funding provided turned out to be more than we required. In terms of Treasury management performance, Appendix 1 shows the indicators that were agreed in February 2022 as part of the strategy and how we have performed against those. And that shows that we were well within all of the limits that were set and there were no breaches during the year. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Claire. Any questions, members? Councillor Lehman. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. You touched on it briefly then in your summary. Well, actually, first of all, thanks for the report. As I'm very new to this, and it was pretty clear on the whole and easy to understand. But I'm just curious, we've invested money at points through the year, and I know that there will be a reason why we took out a £5 million loan and renewed, presumably, the loan that was there the year before, but obviously at a much higher interest rate. Could you just explain a little bit more about that for me, please?
So some of our borrowing and investment balances need to bear in mind the MiFID rules that we have to now work within, which is the international rules that changed in January 19. That meant that there were two types of organisations able to invest, and if you had 10 million portfolio, you were able to retain the commercial rates rather than having to be a retail rate. So some of it is determined by maintaining that position for us. So where it looks like we theoretically should repay the loans because of the rates that we were having to pay at renewals, some of it is a tactical decision to maintain that position. But also our cash flow fluctuates quite a lot during the year, and towards the end of the year, when we stop receiving business rate income because it's a 10-month repayment schedule, that our cash holdings drop, and we do not want to ever be in the position where we haven't got enough money and have to renew at a really high rate because we're having to do it immediately. So it's kind of a bit of a balancing act, and it's not always as cut and dried as the position looks. It's maintaining the position that we are with our preceptor payments and our income coming in, and then grant repayments, where, as Claire said, this year we were bolstered in the previous years where government had overpaid grant that would then had to be repaid this year. So it's kind of, that's the whole point of the Treasury management cash flow activity. It's making sure that we have got enough at any one time for all of the housing benefit payments and capital costs and things. So does that answer your question? Right, thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. I've got Councillor Henderson, then Councillor Worcester online, then Councillor Booth. Councillor Henderson, please.
Yeah, two points, if I may. The first is we have less money because we paid some COVID money back to central government. Was that because we failed to spend it, or because it wasn't needed and COVID stopped earlier than we expected, or what was the reason for that?
It's because the government awarded us some money based on their estimates of the businesses in the district, and it wasn't the estimate was wrong, and so in effect they gave us too much money in the first place. It wasn't as a result of what wasn't paid out. It was that their payment on account was, luckily for us, higher than it should have been.
Okay, and the second point is not really related to this report. I've seen this report over many years and occasionally find a reason to query it, but very rarely. But this tells us that we're looking after our money properly. That's fine, and I'm entirely happy with that. But there's another aspect of our capital sums, if you like, available, and that is to decide what we do with them. At what point can we expect a report in more detail which tells us what we're planning to do with the capital we have and how much of it we're planning to have left by the end of the year, and what different decisions we might take in terms of saying, well, hang on, let's not spend that chunk of money, but let's spend another one over here.
That's what the budget monitoring reports do. So this is the cash flow behind the scenes, making sure that we've got enough money in the bank to pay our bills and pay our preceptors. That is that the Treasury Management function supports the budget position. So the budget was approved in February, and the outturn position was discussed at the last P&R meeting a fortnight ago, which gave the position of the outturn for last year. So it will form part of the monitoring reports throughout the year that will be coming to Policy and Resources. That's not a function of the Audit Committee.
No, I appreciate that. That's fine, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Can you turn your microphone off, please?
I'm sorry.
Councillor Worcester, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear.
Lovely. So just for scrutiny, really, I'd like to ask the question about Council's future borrowing. Are we leveraging every element of safe borrowing Council's got available to them? And are we in a position where, if, for instance, central government decide that, as all public authorities will be going through exactly the same as SWAL, with higher interest borrowing rates and cost of living crisis and other things like inflation going up and up, are we expecting potentially any help from central government regarding the interest rates of local authorities, or are we just going into the market with everybody else?
So the Prudential Code and the Treasury Management Strategy that we work within determine how and when we do our borrowing, and the budget that we put together that Councillor Henderson has just referred to with the capital side of that feeds into how we have planned to do our borrowing to support that programme. So there are assumptions in that at the point that we're going to take the borrowing, and the rates, as Claire has just said, have been going up every month. So at the moment there's some changes to the original assumptions, but until we have to take the borrowing, we will not do that. So with that, that's what's delegated to me to do the borrowing at the right time. So I have permission to borrow, and then it's down to us to time that right for when we do need it. So it is a balancing up with the cash flow management is part of that position. So we will not borrow until we have to. And we work with our Treasury advisors. So where we know that especially this year when we have got the vehicle fleet to procure, and we know we're going to definitely be doing that, the timing of that, we will take advice from them, because it may be, although we're not allowed to borrow in advance, too far in advance, when we have got a specific project that we are definitely going to be doing, we are allowed to do that if we thought that that would give us a beneficial position on the interest rates. What we will also be doing is managing the position on a longer term. So rather than once upon a time at my previous authority when the rates were really static, a longer term loan was the most sensible thing to do at a point in time. At the moment, when we're hoping the rates are going to be coming down in the future, we would do a bit of a mix of different types of borrowing. So maybe do a shorter term borrowing than we would have originally planned to do, and then refinance that as rates come down. So it's part of an ongoing process, depending on the market position. But if we got to a situation where we didn't have enough funding in the budget, if the interest rates went so high that it would totally cancel all of our assumptions out, then we would need to come back to policy and resources to address that budget position. Does that answer your question?
It does. I have a supplementary though, if that's all right, Chair. Could I ask a question on the back of that?
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Worcester.
Thank you. When we're talking about that, are we looking at best practice that are happening as well with regards to councils or other area to see how they are potentially dealing with these positions as well, or is it something that, for instance, would stay quite insular in terms of Swell's approach to this?
No, that's what we. Sorry, Chair. We employ our Treasury advisors that help us to determine the best position, and also, you know, the Kent Finance Network is quite a tight one, and we do work and bounce off of each other quite a lot. I had Kent Finance officers the day I went on leave, and this is the kind of thing that if there was a problem, we would be just openly discussing with each other. So no, we don't keep everything as insular as we would. We welcome advice and collaboration with our neighbouring authorities.
You happy with that, Councillor Worcester?
Yeah, apologise to the dog. Thank you. That answered my question fully. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Booth, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. In line with Councillor Henderson's commentary, I've seen this document previously many times, and I'm familiar with it. A couple of questions, if I can, and a comment. Referring to page big 33, which is the first page of Appendix 1, middle of the page, other long-term liabilities comprise finance leases and other liabilities that are not borrowing but form part of the council's debt. Can the officers give us some kind of dive today on what those finance leases are? And hopefully, if that can be followed up by a separate email to the committee, that will be useful, Chairman, as my first question.
Yeah, so we don't have any of those. That's the operational boundaries and the authorised limits should those positions arise. It covers things. It has covered things in the past, like an embedded lease, which is where there is an assumption that where we've got a contract with an external party. If that involves the use of long-term equipment, then that is deemed to be another long-term liability. So it would fall into those categories, but we don't have them at the moment.
Cool, thank you. Through you, Chairman. The first comment is I applaud the council's stance with regards to the Kent Finance Network. I've dealt with them wearing a different hat, and it's an exemplary format and should at least provide some comfort to this council. So well done on that. The comment was made with regards to financing the fleet vehicles. Timing of that is something that I'm sure you're very familiar with. However, as a cautionary note, particularly commercial vehicles are extraordinarily difficult today to get. So as far as, I think the comment also related to forward funding of that, and there's a penalty. Should we go down that route? But again, just a cautionary tale, if we are going to do that, I implore you don't leave it till the last minute. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, so there is no penalty if we are doing it for a specific project, as long as we're not doing it years and years in advance. So that is for us to manage with the interest rate forecast what would be best for the authority. And the reason that we had some extraordinary meetings in the last civic year was so that we could get permission to engage the contractors with the early orders of the fleet. So that is in hand because of that timeline. That was one of the reasons that the original or the existing contract was extended, was so that there was enough time to be able to secure the fleet for the new contract.
Very quickly, Chairman. So you confirm that fleet has been secured, has it?
Yeah, the contractor has placed the orders.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. Are there any more questions on agenda item number 6? Right, so the recommendation then is to note the Treasury Management Outrun Report for 2022-23. Do I have a proposer, please? Councillor Booth, and seconder, Councillor Lehman. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? I have to ask. So it's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. We now move on to agenda item number 7, the Internal Audit Report, Annual Audit Opinion 2022-23, and that's Catherine, I believe.
Thank you, Chair.
Good.
Firstly, I'd just like to apologise for not being there in person this evening. So the item I'm going to present to you is agenda item 7 on page 37 of your packs, which is the Internal Audit Report and Annual Audit Opinion for 2022-23. So there are 3 strands to this report. The first is the Annual Audit Opinion. The second is the summary of work completed that supports the opinion. And the third is a statement of conformance with standards. So the most important part of this report is my Annual Audit Opinion. In previous reports to the committee, I've outlined progress of delivery of the audit plan and provided updates as to the likely opinion that I'd be delivering, and I'm pleased to present a positive opinion to this committee tonight. I'm just going to read you a statement from the report on my Annual Audit Opinion. So in my opinion, excuse me, Swale Borough Council has adequate and effective management, control and governance processes in place to manage the achievement of their objectives. So this opinion that I'm giving today feeds into the annual governance statement, which in turn feeds into the statement of accounts, and both of those reports you will receive at a later date. Sections 15 to 26 of this report detail the audit work that's been delivered and any other additional sources of assurance that I have drawn upon to arrive at the audit opinion. You'll notice in section 15 that of the audits we have delivered, there have been no weak or poor results, and we have not had to issue any high or critical ratings actions to any of those reports, which is a really positive opinion, and the officers should be very proud of the work that they're currently undergoing. So all of the audit work completed has been delivered following the public sector internal audit standards. Annex C of the report on page 53 details the results of audit work that we have completed that's not already been presented to this committee. Annex D on page 58 reconciles the audit plan that was approved by the Audit Committee back in March 2022 to the work that we've actually delivered. And Annex E on page 59 details information relating to the Mid-Kent audit team. I'm happy to take any questions that anybody's got on the Annual Audit Opinion report.
Councillor Harrison, please.
Thank you, Chair. Here's a question on page 43. This is one of the other reasons that the Audit Committee was set up, because people weren't taking a blind bit of notice of the recommendations. Now, I get that there was nothing high or critical for the 22-23, but that table at the top of page 43 relates to 21-22 or earlier. 21-22 or earlier, and there are still 2 high priorities not actioned. I found that quite strange. Well, actually, I'd have them before us with the spotlight on the Marston Y. So I want to know why.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison.
Okay, so I can answer that. So the audits that they relate to, for the not yet actioned, this was as at the 31st of May, and the audits that they related to were completed right at the back end of the previous year. Both of those actions are now complete. At the point that this related to, they were not complete, so they have been delivered now. I believe one of them related to procurement, and the other one was a building control recommendation, but they have now been complete. I can give you that assurance today.
Thank you, Catherine. Does that satisfy your question, Councillor Harrison?
No, it merely answers the question. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Henderson, please.
If I may, if we look at the table on page 41, it itemises the 8 main audit reviews which were carried out. And could I also tie that in with, I'm trying to find it, the comment under workforce planning on page 49, the final paragraph. It's clear that you looked at workforce planning, but can I drill a bit further into this and pick up 2 points? The first is there's nothing in this report, and will we receive any further report to indicate it, to see how successful our workforce planning has been, because we all know that in different parts of the council there have been shortages. We found it difficult to recruit, or we've had people leaving, and perhaps I can pick up the specific example of the planning team. We've had a temporary head of planning. We now have a different arrangement where the head of service is the head of service, but is not actually a planner. And then we have a chief planner below her. And we've then got on this page 49 a comment. We note that while workforce strategies are approved at committee level, so there is a strategy approved, reports around progress are not required at this level for either council. Oh, I see. I think he's talking about Mason and Swale. Current oversight is achieved through quarterly reporting to and regular liaison with senior management. Now, I'm not sure, firstly, that councillors know enough about the results of our planning strategies, and secondly, I'm not comfortable that those results are not considered by the appropriate committee. I guess you could either consider all of them at P&R, or you could consider it department by department within the various committees. And I'd like to know where we are on that and what your thoughts are on whether there should be a greater oversight there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Catherine wasn't in the briefing earlier on, but I did raise points with regards to planning with our officers that were present there. I don't know whether Lisa or Catherine you'd like to comment on that. Yes, it was an example that I gave in the briefing as well, Councillor Henderson. If I could ask Lisa just to come in first, and then I'll ask you to go back over Councillor Henderson's other questions, Catherine. Thank you.
With regards to the workforce planning work, this forms part of the risk management work with recruitment and retention. So that is being picked up, or it certainly was on the last risk register that came to policy, which now goes to policy and resources. So that is being picked up via that route. So hopefully that will come out in the next report of the risk analysis that goes to P&R. That was the only point I was going to make on that. Yeah, when you raised the point about planning on the internal audit plan.
Thank you, Lisa. Catherine?
I think Lisa sort of covered the point off quite well there that Councillor Henderson raises. Obviously, this audit, we looked at the operational aspects of it and the strategies and processes that were in place at that moment in time. And management do obviously have a significant oversight on those issues. And as Lisa states, they are picked up as part of our risk register reporting, which goes to the various committees at that level, rather than specifically to the Audit Committee.
Thanks, Catherine. Would you like to come back briefly, Councillor? Your microphone's not on, Councillor Henderson.
I don't quite understand the answer to that question, because page 49, under workforce planning, it specifically says the results of workforce planning strategies do not come to committee and are considered by senior management. Well, the question I'm asking is, why don't they come to committee, and can we look at the possibility of bringing them to committee?
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Catherine?
Yeah, I think that's something that we can discuss with the senior management team to see what their views are on whether we can bring that back. That's a question we'll take away from today, if that's okay.
Thank you, Catherine. I've got Councillor Booth next.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I'd like to offer applause for the paper before us from Mid-Kent Audit. Again, extremely well written and concise. And it's nice to see there is this common misconception within the council, I would suggest, that audit purely looks at finance, and it most definitely does not look at just finance. There's some key indicators that we need to be respectful of. And again, drilling down in that, the RAG reviews is something that we should become more and more familiarised with. If I could come to Appendix D, reconciliation of approved 22-23 internal audit plan, please. Two questions on there. Asset inspection and maintenance of open spaces. Clearly, one of the ambitions of the borough, I would suggest, is to maintain its assets in tip-top condition should we need to raid the larder, I'll put it that way. So I'm inquisitive as to why that's been postponed. And maintenance of the open spaces. Again, it's something that many members here and many members listening will be wearing a number of hats with regards to parish councils and the implications of some of those maintained areas, either not done by Swale or done by the parish council, why that's been postponed as well. And my final point is not so much a question, but I share the concerns of Councillor Henderson and stress my concern about the long-term resilience of the planning committee professional team behind the scenes. It's been experienced on a number of occasions since my tenure here, and I just raise deep concerns about it, potentially for costs that this council may see by lack of bums on seats. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. As I said, that was something I did bring up with the officers that were in the pre-briefing, and they have taken that on board. So I'll ask Catherine to come back and answer your main questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. So with regards to asset inspection and maintenance of open spaces, it was purely, I mean, hopefully, obviously you've been very complimentary about my report and I appreciate that. But hopefully you'll appreciate the some of the resourcing issues that we have faced within our team. So the reason these two audits were postponed was purely from a resourcing perspective. The asset inspection audit that we have started to look at, we actually had a meeting today regarding some of that areas, was more around our ground maintenance type assets. So some of the things that within our parks and our land that we have regarding that. So some of that work will be picked up and it has started imminently. The maintenance of open spaces, that audit again, parks, specifically relating to the parks themselves, will be picked up the following year. It's all about getting a balance, and as you've sort of commented already on the breadth of audits that we like to do, we try to ensure that we cover off a broad range of audits across the whole council in any given year, which is why that audit has been moved to 24-25. If there are some specific issues, it's something we can take away and we can have a look at if there's some urgent areas that we need to look at with regard to that area. Hopefully that's answered that question.
Thank you, Catherine. Councillor Booth.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Again, through you, respectful to your earlier comment, Chairman, about commentary made at the pre-meeting or briefing, that wasn't open to the public. So I think if I could bear with you, perhaps you could repeat some of that so it is recorded for this meeting. And coming back again, thank you for your answer. But again, I do stress my concern about the postponement of the asset inspection. And I think this council should expedite that without delay. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Booth. I'm reluctant to repeat some of the comments that I made in private session because they were in private session for the officers to take back and maybe start looking at. But basically my concerns were around the amount of appeals for non-determination we're getting at the moment and other areas such as that. I think that's all I'm prepared to say at the moment in public session, but I will speak with you afterwards. And I take it your questions, Catherine, answered satisfactorily?
Always, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Catherine. Councillor Carnell, please.
Yeah, just on the same page, number 54, could I ask Catherine, IT backup and recovery, that's been postponed. It says 23-24. Is it likely to be this year they will start on it? Thank you, Catherine.
Catherine.
Yes, that audit will definitely be done this year. It's an audit that we have allocated to one of our contractors who'll be working with us this year, who undertook some pieces of work for us last year as well. So that audit will be started. Our contractors who we've appointed fairly recently have been contracted to work with us from a period from July through to December. So hopefully we can get some updates on progress report that will come to this committee in November.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Councillor Carnell. Do we have any more questions for Catherine at this time? No, lovely. Thank you very much for your report, Catherine, and your concise answers. So we now have the recommendations in front of us. Recommendation 1, that the Audit Committee notes the interim Head of Audit Partnerships opinion. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Booth, a seconder, Councillor Henderson, thank you. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? No, so that's carried unanimously. Councillor Henderson, you want to?
Yeah, I think what Catherine said, correct me if I'm wrong, Catherine, that she was going to bring it to senior management to understand the position that we've currently got and why it doesn't come to committee. That yeah. So we will report back on that, not necessarily with.
Thank you. That will be minuted, Councillor Henderson. And finally, recommendation 2, that the Audit Committee notes the work underlying the opinion and the interim Head of Audit Partnerships assurance of its independent completion in conformance, there's a lot of big words here, with proper standards. Proposer, Councillor Booth, thank you, and seconder, Councillor Lehman. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Lisa.
Can I just add for the minutes that it's not an interim? Kathy is the Head of Audit. That's probably a typo from the last report. So if we can just ignore the fact that we said interim, she is the actual Head of Internal Audit.
Okay, thank you. Noted.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't vote because I stuck my hand up to ask a question and then you called the vote. I do have a problem with my eyes at times, but I couldn't see anywhere in this set of papers agenda item 7 recommendations. I know you've got a separate chairman's briefing sheet, but I didn't have any covering report with the internal audit report and annual audit opinion 22-23 at the top of it, agenda item.
Yes, sent as a separate document. It was missed. Sorry, Chair.
Sorry, yeah, it was a separate document, Councillor Harrison. It was sent by email. I
get all my papers put in the pigeonhole. I have been off sick. I came back this morning. I've been busy reading the stuff that was in the pigeonhole. That wasn't with it.
We can make a note of that, Billy, for future reference. Thank you. I apologise about that, Councillor Harrison. That will be taken care of. So, without any further comments, questions or ado, I close this evening's Audit Committee meeting at 19:49. Thank you to all members in attendance and officers in attendance, both remotely and in the building.